Hi everyone, welcome to Outside Lane, and welcome to the second episode of Songs I Love, where the title is self-explanatory. I talk about songs I love and hold dear to my heart. On the first episode, we dabbled into some beloved classics of the last and current century, plus some current 2025 hits. And today, while we don't have any current 2025 hits, this list is just as stacked as the first one. We got 23 votes again in this episode. By the way, for the next poll, let's get more than that, please. And there's a lot to talk about. The only thing I'm gonna say before I start this video is, well, this is all my opinion. I'm talking about these songs because I gave you the Google Forms and y'all chose it, but it's also because I legitimately love these songs, and I would probably never get the opportunity to do so if it wasn't for this series. But you know what? With that out of the way, let's start this list. Starting with... Okay, so the first two songs, a tie happened again. So in this case, I took the opportunity to choose the last two songs myself. But well, let's start with the boss himself, Bruce Springsteen, who doesn't really need introductions. I won't lie when I say that I haven't heard everything from him, but the stuff I did, I legitimately love. Last poll, I actually put the song Hungry Heart instead of this one, which was a hit back in 1980 but also got no votes, which is kind of a shame because it has slowly become one of my favorite Bruce Springsteen songs. But if there's one song that you could technically call it one of his signature hits, well, there's Born in the USA, a great song that conservatives still view it in the wrong way, or even Dancing in the Dark, which is Bruce Springsteen's biggest hit to date, but the other one truly has to be Born to Run, which is an absolute all-timer. Coming from the eponymous album from 1975, the album itself is pretty damn great, but the title track is just something else. It's an absolute monster of a song, where every instrument hits you in the face with lots of power, from the drumming, the gleaming keys, the stunning groove, the rock edge from the guitars, and Bruce Springsteen raspy vocals, who always manages to command a presence with so much power and passion. And not to mention Clarence Clemons going off in the saxophone, like expected. Like seriously, his sax solo is just absolutely amazing. If there's one thing you can call this song, is infamic at its purest. Especially that bridge where it just has some absolutely beautiful crescendos. It never stops showcasing its full power, and it is a blast from start to finish. And that passion can very much be expressed in the lyrics, as he wants to leave his mundane life in New Jersey, which, LOL, this is Bruce Springsteen by the way, that man sweats of New Jersey like no one else, where he takes that next step with the love of his life, as he dashes through highways at full speed where they chase that dream of living the life in the road, where with their love, there isn't anything that can stop them. And again, that passion is so well delivered by Bruce Springsteen that truly makes it believable. It really feels like he's going full speed to chase for that dream with Wendy, the woman in the story. Hell, it makes you believe in the American dream for once, even if that dream is exactly what it is. Just a dream. But if this song is what that dream feels like, god damn it, I get it then. Bruce Springsteen doesn't need to prove anything to anyone at this point. The man has an extended career of classics under his belt, and his influence is still pretty evident to this day. Look at a guy like Sam Fender, one of the biggest acts in the UK currently, and I don't need to tell you what's his biggest influence. And you know what? When one of his biggest songs sounds like this, then you absolutely cannot deny that influence. Born to Run truly deserves to stand tall as one of the best songs of the 70s and hell, maybe even ever. And speaking of acts that I love and don't need any sort of introduction, well, The Cure, who are quite definitely one of the biggest and most influential gothic rock bands we've ever seen. And ever since I've started to get into their music, they have slowly become one of my favorite bands ever, either with their atmospheric slower records or their more upbeat pop stuff. Plus, Robert Smith probably has one of the most recognizable looks for any vocalist. Even if you don't know any The Cure song, you have seen this man before. Now for this specific song called Love Song, This comes from their 1989 album Disintegration, which is considered to be their magnum opus and most popular album to date, which, while I agree that it's in fact a fantastic album, I wouldn't call it my personal favorite. For that, I would go with their 1981 record, Pornography. Yes, they have an album called Pornography, and it's my favorite from them. Got a problem? But speaking of Disintegration, Love Song happens to be their biggest crossover success, reaching number 2 in 1989. And I mean, I get it, mostly because it's one of their most accessible songs to date, but also because it's absolutely excellent, as it's quite frankly one of their most straightforward love songs they've ever made. And hell, this is the band that made Just Like Heaven and Friday I'm in Love. By the way, Friday I'm in Love is a good song, y'all are just cynical. Either by the composition, that even being in minor key, it still works for a pensive but optimistic tone, with the slick bass line which creates a pretty nice groove, the main synth key, the jangling guitars, and the strings in the post-chorus that sound very pretty, and Robert Smith delivering a very restrained performance that very much works for this song. And when I say that this is a very straightforward song, I legitimately mean it. The lyrics couldn't be any clearer, but it doesn't feel generic or even underwhelming. One emotion that The Cure is so great at evoking is the sense of love and connection at its most desperate moments. Something that is also felt on their last album from 2024, Songs of a Lost World. And while a lot of those songs are inspired by very personal themes for Robert Smith himself, where when you compare it with this song, the stakes feel kinda small by comparison, that desire for an everlasting connection is still very much present here. And when the tone of the song feels more ambiguous, and Robert Smith sells that balance between optimism and melancholy on his vocals, I do think it really works. It makes it feel very earnest and human. Honestly, that's all I can say about this one. It's just the biggest hit from such a beloved band. I'm not sure how many people who watch my videos are The Cure fans themselves, but if you aren't, you should give them a chance. And while Love Song is one of their most simple songs to date, and not even the best song from Disintegration, it still remains a classic, and a pretty good start to dive into their discography.
Rebecca rode up on the afternoon train. It was sunny.
Well, it was a matter of time until Taylor Swift would show up on this video too. I first tried to put a Taylor Swift song on that poll with Paper Rings from Lover, but that didn't really go anywhere. But now we go with probably her most acclaimed album to date, Folklore. Which, by the way, that album is now 5 years old. That is insane to think about. And the album is still as good as it was when it got released. And if there's one song that is interesting to come back to, that has to be The Last American Dynasty. It's the last great American dynasty, you dumbass. As in my opinion, it is probably one of the most fascinating songs in her discography. First of all, it sounds absolutely phenomenal, as for a relaxed but surprisingly fast instrumental, as it features an expansive set of instruments. From that main major key piano melody, the flutes, the electric guitar pickups, that vary the national drum kit, which is obvious because Aaron Dessner produced the whole album, and the very pretty strings that give a lot of opulence and grandiosity to the sound as it progresses. But as per many songs on Folklore, the lyrics are the thing that makes this song so interesting, and well, great. For most songs on Folklore, they were inspired in mostly fictional stories, but The Last Great American Dynasty, it's one of those songs that is actually inspired in reality, splashed with a couple hints of fiction and melodrama. In this case, the story of Rebecca Harkness, a very rich socialite who was known for her very lavish lifestyle and controversial actions. In the song, it mentions that she and her husband William Hill Harkness, who got his riches from being the heir of his father's Standard Oil fortune, bought a house in Rhode Island and lived there until he passed away of a heart attack. As after his death, she spent a lot of her money in lavish parties and other luxuries, until she left the Rhode Island home for good. We're in the bridge where it starts building up the tension really well with the string section, and when the song crescendos, you get the revelation that Taylor actually bought that house. And that's where the song really clicks for you, as she makes that parallel between her and Rebecca Harkness, where a lot of the actions both of them made would be celebrated celebrated by men if they did it as well, but because they're women, that's not really what happens. So by getting the house, she decides to embrace all of that baggage. She'll be the loudest woman the town has ever seen, and she'll be happy doing it. Also, there's just some details that I legitimately love. Probably my favorite is how the choruses changes its meaning. With the first chorus being the perception of Rebecca's husband's death being blamed on her eccentricities, the second chorus being about her spending the money on her lavish life, and the final chorus being about Taylor herself picking up that legacy. As I said, lyrical-wise, it's probably one of Taylor's most fascinating songs to date, and it really shows how well she can create a narrative. So in my opinion, one of the best songs from Folklore, and even one of her best songs to date. Truly legendary stuff.
You were a child, crawling on your knees toward it.
And finally I get the chance to talk about MGMT. Took it long enough, which even if it's been almost 2 decades since their debut, they still hold strong as one of the most cherished acts we have in this age, as they've gone through a myriad of genres with mostly great results, and that has garnered them a cult following, including myself. Now, I think you are aware of this song, Kids, coming from their debut album, Oracular Spectacular, which, even if it's really damn great, and it has some of their biggest hits to date, in this case Time to Pretend, Electric Feel, and well, this song, it's not exactly my favorite project from them, but as I said, Oracular Spectacular still has a lot to like, especially Kids, which is just an absolute banger. The first thing you're probably gonna recognize from the song is that main synth that opens it up, which instantly hooks you in. By the way, MGMT are absolutely incredible when it comes to insanely catchy synth melodies. Look at songs like Time to Pretend or Me and Michael from Little Dark Age. But alongside with the synth bass and the drum kit that create a great groove that gets stuck in your head instantly, plus with that synth guitar solo on the bridge, and you get an absolutely memorable instrumental. And with the overdubbed vocals that bring a little bit of a detached and even ironic delivery, not only it manages to create some great harmonies, but you can also see that irony on the lyrics, as its tone is sarcastic, but along with that, in my opinion, there is an honest underlying message, as it describes how nostalgia can really damage your own lens of so many aspects. As in the first verse, there's stuff from your own childhood that can be seen as innocent, but in the future, it can have its own consequences, like how picking up insects off the ground can affect the environment. And in my point of view, the chorus serves as a bit of a call out to that behavior, to not let that nostalgia blur your decisions in your past, as maybe those decisions might have been more detrimental than you expect. You can also see as a message to take better care of the environment, as you can see that the effects of global warming are becoming much worse by the second, which surprisingly feels relevant to this day. I mean, to be fair, for most people the thing that they will remember first from the song is how insanely catchy it is, and maybe even the fact that the band almost sued the ex-president of France because he used the song at a national congress without their permission, which is just really funny. But not only that legacy is warranted, but there's somehow a lot more than meets the eye with this already timeless song. So hey, if it's been a long time since you've heard this one, give it a chance. Trust me, it's so worth it.
Hey, I want it all, don't have to choose.
And speaking of more songs and albums that are now half a decade old, let me just tell you, I do not fucking miss 2020 in any way, but between March and May, there was something in the water when it came to great music. And one of those anthems for quarantine, at least for me, was Rina Sawayama's debut record, Sawayama, that felt like a breath of fresh air in a year that definitely needed one, and I still wind up listening to it very often, including the song we're talking about, Excess, which honestly, it's just kind of everything you want in a pop song. It opens up with this opulent string melody that is then interrupted by the slamming guitars that serves as the transition for other parts of the song, as it then transitions to the more 2000s R&B style of the instrumental, especially with the shuffling guitar main melody and the very mid-2000s inspired percussion, where Rina Sawayama Sawayama can sound as effortless as possible when it comes to vocals. I'll say that her vocals get slightly swallowed in the mix in the first and second chorus, as the mix gets slightly overstuffed, but the moment she belts in the last chorus, there's just nothing stopping her. Plus with some pretty nice flourishes added, like some synth choices, and even some sound effects used, and that absolutely impeccable bridge where it sounds as big as possible, to then transition into that bigger final chorus. It's just a very well structured song that does everything you could want in a pop song. It's catchy, quirky, takes some risks without losing its catchiness, and it's a lot of fun. And all of that can also be seen in the content, where it's taking a shot at capitalism, mostly at consumerism culture, where the main character aspires to buy the most luxurious and opulent things they can possibly get in a society that incentivizes that consumption, even if the world we live in is gonna get affected by that system. The more profit, the more is the damage to the environment. It's a shot at the hypocrisy of overconsumption in a hyper-capitalist world that, while it isn't exactly anything revolutionary, it does what it's trying to do very well, especially with Sawayama's delivery, where her pursuit for more wealth is sold in a believable way. So yeah, no wonder people fell in love with this song and album that year. It's not my favorite from Sawayama. I would call songs like Tokyo Love Hotel or Bad Friend better in my opinion, but it is still absolutely worthy of that praise. By the way, Hold the Girl was a good album, y'all are just mean. Honestly, this might be my biggest win on this series so far. I got y'all to vote for a Sufjan Stevens song. That is insane. Summarizing Sufjan Stevens' career is a bit of a challenge because I have not done the full deep dive into his whole discography, but also because he's jumped through so many genres that it's kinda hard to describe. So let's focus on the song of the hour, Chicago, coming from his 2005 album Illinois, which is the second album from his 50 States album series. Which, by the way, he's yet to complete. Come on, dude, you've got 48 states to get through. And it has slowly become one of my favorite songs of all time. Being the centerpiece of the album, which makes sense, it's Chicago, but also because it's probably the key to really getting this album, as you get this pretty expensive arrangement, as the chimes clash with the strings, the guitar notes, and the very propulsive drums, as Sufjan Stevens, alongside with the organ melody in the verses, delivers a performance that borders on the whimsy, but in this case it makes sense, as the chorus just explodes with the choir, which was the right choice, because it makes the song sound bigger than he already was. It makes the content of the song even more anthemic. The album is based around many tales of Illinois' history, but also his own experiences in the States, and Chicago is probably the most autobiographical song on the record, as it's pretty much his love letter to the city. For him, it was the ideal escape for his own freedom, either from his mundane life or just to seek his own independence. No matter how much it will cost him, it's worth it just to feel alive. As Sufjan Stevens has said in an interview that he used Chicago as an escape during his days living in Detroit. But truly, it's not just about Chicago, it's about himself, as this is his own pursuit to freedom, as he goes from Detroit to Chicago to then New York City to find that freedom. Even if he might get into hardships, it's worth it for him. It's a very feel-good song that not only sounds massive, but its message of idealizing a new path in life feels very optimistic and even a little bit relatable. If I can share something that happened to me, is that I remember watching Little Miss Sunshine a couple months ago, and I just cheered the moment that instrumental of Chicago came. Not just because, again, I love the song, but if you compare it with the movie's themes, it makes sense. By the way, go watch that movie if you haven't, it's legit incredible. So yeah, I feel more than comfortable calling this one of my personal favorite songs ever.
I like the way you talk, I like the things you wear. I want your number tattooed on my arm in ink, I swear.
So, did y'all know that Niall Horan is actually a pretty good artist? No, seriously. The man has his own style that stands out from the other members of One Direction. It might be my favorite member currently. Yeah, even better than Harry Styles. Now to be fair, it took me a little bit to really embrace his music. His biggest hit, Slow Hands, was not the best introduction, that song is just mediocre as hell, but I think he really came on his own with his sophomore record from 2020, Heartbreak Weather, which is a really damn good album. And to show that, here we have the lead single of that album, Nice to Meet Ya, which absolutely fucking slaps. Like seriously, the first time I heard this, I could not believe that this was coming from Niall Horan of One Direction, as it goes for a style that absolutely fits him, which is more of the Britpop / dance rock of the 90s. As this instrumental is just filled with so much attitude, from that slick main piano melody, that great groove from the bass line, and the absolute killer of that guitar melody used as a breakdown as the faster percussion accompanies it, making it such a great moment. Or just Niall Horan's vocals that ooze of so much charisma without even trying that much, as his lower register is pretty damn strong. As for this hookup song, as he's afraid he might not see this person again, but he'll give it a try either way, it is pretty effective. Plus, not only the mix is just perfectly balanced to a T, I just absolutely love the song's production, as there's this fading vocal effect right before the chorus that every time it appears, it just sounds absolutely impeccable. Honestly, that's kind of all I have to say. It's just an amazingly constructed pop song that has so many hooks and such coolness that it's just absolutely infectious. As I said before, I do think you should give a chance to Niall Horan's music, as I think there's a lot to find that you might actually like. Even on his last album, The Show, which wasn't quite as good as Heartbreak Weather, but still quite solid. So yeah, give him a chance, and go back to this song if you haven't in a while.
Oh, that bubbly, train that muddy, when we covered it, yeah, I'm covered in.
Here's the thing about this one, I absolutely expected this song to be part of this video when I put it in the poll, and the reason is that Future has been receiving a lot of reevaluation of his discography. Now I'll have to admit that it took me a while to actually start liking his music, but when his music clicked with me, yeah, I got it. Not everything works for me, but the good stuff is legit really damn strong. Like this song, Codeine Crazy, that comes from his 2014 mixtape, Monster. That is one of his most acclaimed projects to date, not just by critics but fans as well, and it's not difficult to see, because it has some of his best and hardest beats to date. Again, I don't love all of it, but the good stuff is legit crazy. Like again, Codeine Crazy, the last song on the mixtape and one of his best songs ever. One thing that actually took me a lot to notice, even though it probably shouldn't, is the sample of Cedric Charvet's remix of Summertime Sadness by Lana Del Rey. You know, the remix that got big in 2013, but at this point, I think most people remember the original more than the remix that got it to the top 10. Don't get me wrong, I like both versions. But the way that it's sampled is legit fantastic, as the main synth from the remix melody is drowned out by the loud bass and trap percussion, as it creates a hazy and melancholic atmosphere that sounds like a nightmare, which doesn't sound like a compliment, but I truly mean it as such, because the song itself sounds incredible, and Future manages to capture a pretty vulnerable delivery, even with his falsetto that doesn't exactly sound great, but it still works to capture that melancholic vibe, which by the content of the lyrics, it makes sense. I mean, at first you could say that it has more of a celebrative tone, especially as he mentions the lifestyle he's experiencing, but when you peel the layers, you see how dark the song can really be, as all of the riches, sex, and drugs are an escape from his own struggles, as he mentions his addiction to lean, as the lingering shadow of his ex Sierra is still present. So every flex you get on this song, while you can see that he might be happy with those riches, that empty feeling doesn't really go away. Probably the line I remember the most comes from the last verse, which is as blunt as you can get, but it still hits you very hard. Yeah, this one really sticks into your head because of how great and sad it really is. Obviously, I don't know Future personally, and we're only getting the picture he's choosing to show, so there will obviously be that barrier between the music and real life, but it still strikes one hell of a picture, and one that I think it should be heard. It's a heavy listen, but I'll assure you, it's worth it. You know, when I put this song on the poll, I was not expecting it to be one of the most voted songs, but at the same time, I shouldn't really be that surprised, as it not only is Justice's signature song, who's probably the biggest French electro house group of all time, only behind Daft Punk obviously, and it is for damn good reason. I will not deny that I've been a fan of this group since I've heard this song in my childhood. It's one of those songs that Just Dance introduced me to. Coming from their 2007 album, Cross, well yeah, it absolutely slaps. I mean, just by that insanely sticky bass line, you know this would be a blast. But the other elements of the song deserve as much credit as well. From the impeccable strings, the punchy drum kit, that interpolation of Me Against the Music by Britney Spears that works a lot better than he has any right to, and the child choir for the vocals, which actually comes from the choir foundations of young musicians from London, which is honestly pretty cool. And while children vocals can be pretty divisive, if it doesn't work, it really doesn't. In this case, it makes it even catchier, which is also the same thing you can say about the lyrics, as it features multiple references to Michael Jackson songs, from ABC to Black and White to Pretty Young Thing, and that was a deliberate choice, as they clearly intended this to be a tribute to Michael Jackson. And while again, the lyrics is them trying to attach those references in ways that don't make a lot of sense, you can't deny that he makes for one sticky and memorable hook. And what could have become annoying, I don't know, I just find it pretty charming. So as you can see, this is in fact a terrific house song with quite easily one of the most quotable hooks of the whole 2000s. I do recommend giving a chance to other stuff from their music though, because if you like DANCE, there's other songs on that debut album and even on their last album from 2024, Hyperdrama, that are just as good as this one.
Listen to the wind blow, watch the sun.
Well, here's the most voted song on this whole list, and one that absolutely didn't surprise me at all. So if there's something that I don't like to say, it's called something the best thing of all time, especially when it comes to music, because there's so much music out there that it is hard to decide what is the absolute best. But when it comes to an album like Rumors by Fleetwood Mac, I am pretty confident to call it one of, if not my favorite albums ever, because it's an absolutely incredible album from start to finish, with no rough spot whatsoever. And it came in a complicated time to Fleetwood Mac, as the band was at the cusp of a rupture, with the pressure of making another hit album after the highly successful self-titled in 1975, and multiple romantic breakups, with both Christine and John McVie close to a divorce, and Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham ending their relationship as well, and Mick Fleetwood discovering that his wife was having an affair, and not long after he would enter in an affair with Nicks, and also drugs because, well, of course, this is the fucking 70s. Yeah, things were absolutely hellish during the recording of the album, and that would bleed into the music as well, and The Chain might possibly be the angriest moment on the whole record, and possibly the most acclaimed song on the whole album outside of Dreams. And yeah, there's a reason for it, because it's absolutely incredible, as you see the rage building in this song slowly, as with the first part, it opens up with the resonator guitar melody, and the kick drum, and the harmonica in the back of the mix, as in the verses you hear Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks in unison with that ever-present rage in the song, which is also built in the chorus, as the bass line really picks up alongside with the snare and the tambourine, as you can really get that intensity and groove. But then you get that second part after the second chorus, where you get that instantly memorable bass line and the guitar solo, as the tempo speeds up and the drums exploding to everything that this song was building up to, which is just unbridled rage. And well, I don't need to tell you that it sounds absolutely epic. And that rage, again, is present in the lyrics. There could be different interpretations of the lyrics. If you have your own view, you can always put it in the comments. I would love to hear it. But in my point of view, it's about the toxic and codependent relationship that was present during the recordings. As you see the bitterness spiraling to bigger levels when you see them try to break that chain and set themselves free, but also knowing that no matter how much they try, they will always be stuck in some way, which again, if you read into what was going on during the recording of the album, it was kind of the situation the band was in, where everything in their life was going awry, but yet they still kept going for the sake of the band. Thankfully, they've managed to bounce back from all of that, and now the song can even have a different meaning, where that connection is so unbreakable that only death can really stop it. Honestly, I kinda struggle to talk about this song because, well, I mean, it's The Chain by Fleetwood Mac, a song so beloved that pretty much unites all generations to love it. But if there's something that I can say, is that it's quite a miracle that the song is as good as it is, and the album itself, especially with the turbulent history of the behind the scenes, and the fact that this song was, no pun intended, chained together from other rejected parts of demos from them. I'm not gonna say that all of that turmoil was worth it. As I stated plenty of times, during research for this video, you could clearly tell that it was an awful time for them, but at the end, not only wound up becoming one of their best songs, but a song that even the band can look back with a much more positive light, hopefully. So yeah, absolute classic, obviously. By the way, rest in peace Christine McVie. She was such an important member for the band, and her accolades will never be forgotten. And yeah, that was the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, I'm actually finding a lot of joy writing these videos, and I intend to keep doing them because honestly it's a lot of fun. But outside of that, I actually have a couple projects coming soon. A couple new series here and there that I'm not gonna reveal just yet. I might even talk about some movies soon. There will be the hot takes video that is probably coming somewhere along May, so hopefully there's new stuff coming soon, and I cannot wait to show it to everyone. But while that isn't happening, that is it for now. Subscribe to my channel, follow me on my social media, please give a like and share this video to everyone, and even send the comments. Again, it's very important because it boosts the algorithm, and the next Google Forms poll is already available, so go vote for that if you haven't. And yeah, that is it. I hope I see y'all soon.